Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 185, IO 537d to 538a. Io has just agreed with Socrates that things known by one techne can't be known by another techne. He's made all the content of a techne exclusive to that techne, and there is no possibility of content being shared by various techni, and this is, of course, a problem. Well, it is a problem so far as reality is concerned, but it's excellent for disproving that a rhapsode has any techne, because every piece of content in poems must be content of techne other than rhapsody. Therefore, there is nothing for rhapsody to have a techne about. And this is what Socrates is purporting to try to prove. He's not really trying to prove that. He's just trying to get Io to think, so far as I can see, because all of his arguments are specious, sophistic. It isn't the case, for example, that horses are exclusive to the hippike techne, horsemanship. They're also part and parcel of the charioteer's techne. He wouldn't be a charioteer without horses. And I'm sure there are several other techne which deal with horses in one way or another. The content of a techne is possibly part of the techne, but the main part of a techne is the method, what is done by that techne and what the aim of the techne is. It seems that Socrates thinks that Io has agreed too quickly, and he tries again to make Io think a little about the nature of techne. Todede moi proteron tu apokrinai. But answer me this thing here before this. Ten men heteran fese enai tina technen tend heteran? Nai. Do you claim that there is some techne and another one? This is to say that given two techne, each is different from the other one. And Io says yes. It's interesting that Socrates asks him whether he claims this or simply says this. He doesn't ask whether he thinks this. A claim is something that Io will have to defend in an argument. Ara hosper egotek mairomenos, hoton hemen heteron pragmaton e episteme hed heteron, huto kalo tenmen alen tende alen technen, huto kai su? Nai. Just as I, sorting out, whenever there is the episteme of some things, pragmata, and the episteme of other things, just so I call the one techne and the other techne. In other words, I call the two different techne. Do you also do this? Yes. In other words, if they find the episteme is different of different things, then the techne is different of different things. It seems that many people used episteme and techne interchangeably, although techne is the application of the knowledge of a field, while episteme is just the knowledge and not the application. Given that the episteme is one aspect of techne, it isn't surprising that what is found of episteme must also be found of techne. The episteme of things is the aspect of the techne of those same things. So if we decide that different things have different episteme, they would also have different techne. And what Socrates has done here is by placing the emphasis on the difference between episteme and techne, or the lack of difference between them, he's allowed the idea that they each have different things, pragmata, to slip through without any criticism. He surely would have liked Io to think a bit and raise some objections. After all, Io is now arguing against his own techne of being a rhapsode. There is no techne of a rhapsode if all of the content of poetry is to be allocated to other techne. Socrates continues with a spurious corollary. Eigarpu ton auton pragmaton episteme eetis, ti an ten men heteran phaimen enai, ten heteran, hopoteget tauta edenai ap amphoteron. For I suppose, if there were some episteme of the same things, pragmata, why would we say that there is one and the other? In other words, why would we say that there are two episteme, whenever the same things are to be known by both of them? And now comes Socrates' example. Hosper egote gignosko hotipente esin hutoi hoi dactyloi, kai su, hosper ego, perituton tauta gignoskes. Just as both I know that these fingers are 5, so too you, just as I know about these the same things. Kai ese ego eroimen e te aute techne gignoskomen te arithmetike ta auta egote kai su e alle phaes an depu te aute. Nai. And if I were to ask you if we know by the same techne, the arithmetike techne, I and you both know the same things, or by another, you would no doubt say, by the same. Yes, Socrates appears to have proved that we cannot have two techne on the same subject matter. In other words, we can't have horsemanship and chariot driving because they both use the same subject matter of horses. But this is not the case. He has confused this sort of distinction between two techne with one techne shared by two people. Both Io and Socrates have the arithmetike techne when they can count the number of fingers on a hand. They would both agree that they have 5 fingers. Or rather, they would both agree that Socrates has 5 fingers because the identical subject matter in this example are the 5 fingers on Socrates' hand. This is how absurd Socrates' argument is. If we stay a moment with Socrates' 5 fingers, Io and Socrates agree that they are 5 because they use the same techne. They do not each have a separate techne which comes to the same results. This is the whole point of a techne, that it has a methodology, and this methodology can be used by different people. But let us imagine a therapist, a physiotherapist who deals with the flexibility of fingers, the health of fingers, and a manicurist. They both have different techne, although the subject matter is the same. In this example, Socrates' 5 fingers. Obviously, a techne is more abstract than that. It would include everything to do with that techne. But for the point of this example, Socrates' 5 fingers could indeed be the subject matter of different techne, but Socrates has caused Io to think that that is impossible, but this is only because Socrates has used one techne which they both share, and obviously if they share the one techne, they are not going to have 2 different techne. I say Socrates has caused Io to think this. It's really up to Io to think for himself. And obviously Plato, who's writing this dialogue for readers, is expecting his readers to be puzzled by all of this, and they should start thinking for themselves. At this point, Socrates is leading up to proving yet again that rhapsody is not a techne, and Io seems not to notice or not to care one or the other. We recall that after Socrates had shown that rhapsody was merely divine power and nothing to do with techne, Io simply disagreed. He knew how much effort he had put into learning the craft. If we get a similar reaction after this refutation, it might help to explain why Io isn't making any effort to follow the argument or predict where it's going. So Socrates carries on. Hotoinun arti emmellon ereses taise, nuni epe, katapa sonton technon, huto soidoke, temen aute techne ta auta anankaion enai gignosken, te hetera me ta auta, al eper alle estin anankaion kai hetera gignosken. Huto moi doke, O Socrates. What I was going to ask you just now, then, tell me now, if it seems to you thus, through all techne, that it is necessary to know by the same techne the same things, this time without pragmata, and by another techne, that is, not the same things, but if another is, it is necessary to know other things, again without pragmata. It seems to me so, Socrates. It might seem that Socrates is repeating the same thing over and over again, that 2 techne cannot have the same subject matter, but if there are 2 techne, they have different subject matters. Well, it might seem that Socrates is repeating the same thing over and over again, and this is because he is. And why would he repeat the same thing over and over again? It's because he wants Io to start thinking, and he isn't thinking. I mean, he isn't thinking dialectically.